All right, welcome in. Good morning. We're here to talk about the 49ers ownership of Seattle. 5 straight wins against the Seahawks, all of those coming over the past 2 seasons. Second straight sweep of the Seahawks. We'll see if Seattle somehow is able to claw their way back into the playoff picture so the 49ers can beat them a sixth time in 2 seasons. But this was impressive yesterday. The 28-16 win. The 49ers were far from perfect. But again, another double-digit victory. That just seems to be the norm, and it is the norm for this team. And it's the sign of a great team. When you can face a maturity test like they did yesterday, possible letdown game, and still win by 12 points despite having some of the let down things happen. The 49ers weren't, I'll say it again, they made several mistakes yesterday. If you can still win by double digits, even in the context of that, well, you've got something special brewing. And that's exactly the case with the 49ers. I wrote about their depth yesterday. Creative grit fueled resilient 49ers defense to another big win over the Seahawks. The link to this article is in the description. It's a perfect time to subscribe to The Athletic. Go ahead and check it out. That's Clelin Ferrell doing the Eric Armstead belly rub. So, you saw the 49ers from the very start of the day before kickoff yesterday pay homage to Eric Armstead. Javon Kinlaw went to the team store, bought a number 91 jersey, arrived at Levi Stadium wearing that number 91 jersey. Armstead is currently out. I would guess that he'll be out until at least the Ravens game, but we'll get an update from Kyle Shanahan today. And the 49ers, with big time respect for one of their veteran leaders, said that we're going to honor Eric Armstead. We're going to fill in, we're going to pick up the slack, and we're also going to make this a symbolic unifier for the team. So Kinlaw literally went to the team store, bought Eric Armstead's jersey. Clelin Ferrell did the belly rub for his sack. Randy Gregory told me that he wanted to do the belly rub too, but in the heat of the moment, he just went back to his own original sack celebration. But the 49ers replacement players, the guys who don't get as much love as your Nick Bosa's and your Eric Armsteads and your Javon Hargraves, it was the 49ers B-listers in this game absolutely came through, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Hell, even on the offensive side of the ball, you had John Feliciano with the highest 49ers grade on PFF of any player. Over 90, I think a 91.4 for John Feliciano, who was filling in for Spencer Burford at right guard. You can see why the 49ers are talking about having to insert Feliciano into a platoon once both Burford and him are healthy. So we'll see how the offensive line continues to develop. But a lot of good stuff for the 49ers, some problems too for the 49ers against Seattle. So we'll get into all of it as we go through the grades. Just make sure to check out the piece that is in the description. I'll pop that open on the screen again in a little bit. We're going to go reverse order this time. Don't worry. We'll talk about how great Brock Purdy has been, the MVP candidacy there, which is obviously very strong. But 1 week we go quarterback to DB and special teams. This week we're going to go DB on upward, but I'll save special teams for somewhere near the end. But stay tuned. We'll let more people join the live before we give Brock Purdy his grade and take a look at some really staggering stats. I mean, he's leading the league by a wide margin in so many categories. Today, I want to focus on how Brock Purdy is doing against the blitz because he torched the blitz again against the Seahawks. All right, enough about Purdy right now. 49ers DBs, I'm giving him an A. DK Metcalf didn't have a single catch after the first drive. And yeah, he scored a touchdown on the first drive, go route. It took a perfect pass from Drew Lock and a hell of a catch from DK Metcalf there, inbounds near the pylon to score that 31-yarder. I put everything into context. The 49ers lost Charvarius Ward on one of the very first plays of the game. He missed a tackle against DK, and as he missed the tackle, looks like that's where he tweaked his groin. When you lose your main plan against DK Metcalf, who's, a true physical specimen out there, it's not tough to man him up. When you lose Charvarius Ward that early in the game, it's cause for probably a little bit of panic. The 49ers admitted that they were nervous on the sideline about this. Again, they didn't give up a single catch to DK Metcalf, who only had 2 total after his touchdown. And that was with a replacement plan at cornerback. That was with Ambry Thomas having to play a lion's share of the snaps. That was with Deommodore Lenoir on the other side. That was with Isaiah Oliver having to go back in and play the slot cornerback position, which is so challenged in a game that has Tyler Lockett on the other side. So DBs for the 49ers, the job that Steve Wilks has done to get these guys playing at this level with this kind of depth, it cannot be overstated. And look, the 49ers, they're going to be picking up Jason Verrett now. He was in the locker room yesterday. He's going to be signing with the practice squad. And I don't know how long Charvarius Ward is going to be out. I know he was trying to come back into the game yesterday, didn't quite feel comfortable about it after doing some backpedaling and some stationary bike work on the sideline. So Verrett's obviously not somebody I think that the 49ers are counting on. I think that they love his veteran presence, his resilience. He's got so much respect in the locker room. It's an all upside kind of signing, right? A no lose situation. But you do have to monitor the injury status of Charvarius Ward because he's so important to this team. The fact, though, that the 49ers have developed and cultivated their DB depth under Steve Wilks from a group of, just it was kind of just a forgotten group, right? Everybody talked about the pass rush, but now it's like a strength of this team. We saw the coverage lead the way in Philadelphia with the coverage-oriented game plan. And then we saw yesterday, I haven't even talked about the safeties yet, but Jair Brown, he was the highest-graded 49ers defender in this game. And just his recognition from that single high free safety position when Drew Lock tried to go deep to DK Metcalf. We talk about Metcalf not having a catch after the first drive. That was all Jair Brown. It was great coverage from Deommodore Lenoir, but the double up from the safety over the top, that's a mature play. That doesn't look like a rookie there getting fooled by anything, right? That was Jair Brown coming over the top looking like a true veteran at safety. He's been really damn good in coverage ever since taking over for Talanoa Hufanga. The one issue was the tackling on a couple plays against the Philadelphia Eagles. But as I said last week, the 49ers don't believe that Jair Brown's going to be the same tackler now as he is in January. Or they didn't even think he was going to be the same guy last week as he's going to be this week. They think that the development is going to be rapid. The development has been rapid. He was a good tackler at Penn State. Stuff at the NFL just moves at a different speed, so you got to calibrate yourself to the speed. And I think we saw some of that calibration when he tried to tackle A.J. Brown and missed against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that he's figuring it out on the fly, and the coverage has been good from the start for Jair Brown. So, yes, I know Deommodore Lenoir ejected. It's debatable about how severe his actions were in that game. He shoved. It was an open-handed shove. DK Metcalf in the face. You'd question Deommodore Lenoir's intelligence if he tried to punch DK Metcalf with a helmet on. He didn't do that. The Deommodore Lenoir, I think, was just trying to protect his teammate, and he got ejected because DK Metcalf deserved to be ejected, and the officials wanted to keep it even. And any contact with an opponent's helmet, which DK Metcalf obviously made against Fred Warner, was going to result in somebody getting tossed from the game. So, but outside of that, Lenoir gave up only 2 catches. He covered really well. He had an interception taken away from him because Nick Bosa lined up off sides. It's the second interception that Nick Bosa has cost Deommodore Lenoir over the past 2 seasons against the Seahawks, right? Last year, it was a pick 6 in Seattle, but Bosa landed on top of Geno Smith, so that one was nullified. Yesterday was the offsides penalty. And then Lenoir was out there, and I think the 49ers players really appreciated him standing up for Fred Warner. Nick Bosa was saying that he owes Deommodore Lenoir a Christmas present just because he loves how scrappy he is. He called Lenoir a rabid dog. And Lenoir's just, and Lenoir calls himself a hyena. So hyena, rabid dog, maybe a little synonymous there. But, Lenoir is there to get under opponent's skin. The 49ers had a challenge. This is according to Mike Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle. He said that the night before the game, Kyle Shanahan showed the 49ers defense clips of DK Metcalf losing his cool, fits of rage from DK Metcalf. And Kyle Shanahan said, hey, I'm going to offer a Christmas present to anybody who can successfully get under DK Metcalf's skin. And 49ers, I think they got under his skin all game. He was slamming his helmet on the bench and breaking the helmet warmer. And then later on, he just walked up to Fred Warner and grabbed his face mask after he suplexed Fred Warner about 5 seconds before that. So obviously 2 personal fouls in one play. That's something that you get ejected for in this league. And Fred Warner successfully got under DK Metcalf's skin. So Christmas present coming to Fred Warner. Chris, and part of the whole process of getting under DK Metcalf's skin, and probably the integral part of it, was how well the 49ers locked him up on the back end. The way that this secondary has progressed is no joke. We know that the 49ers pass rush is stocked with an unbelievable amount of talent, but we also saw the game against Minnesota in week 7 and the game against the Cincinnati Bengals in week 8. And in both of those games, even though the 49ers pass rush was doing its job, the secondary wasn't. The coverage alignments weren't there. And because of that, it didn't matter that Nick Bosa was getting pressure because guys were open too quickly. The secondary wasn't doing its job to fuel the pass rush. That completely changed starting in week 10 when the 49ers came back from their bye against Jacksonville. And I think that the big key was Ambry Thomas, because Ambry Thomas was able to take the outside when Lenore slid inside. Isaiah Oliver removed from the lineup. That was the one big coverage liability for the 49ers at slot, and they were able to mask that deficiency, and they've grown as a coverage unit since then. And there's been a real peak over the past 2 weeks. Against Philadelphia with Charvarius Ward just going complete lockdown mode on A.J. Brown. I mean, that was a great game from Charvarius Ward with his PBUs. He's leading the league in pass breakups now, by the way, 16. And he had one yesterday, and it was almost an interception. It's too bad for the 49ers that Charvarius Ward couldn't bring it down on that deep pass early to DK Metcalf, because if he did haul that in as a pick, he wouldn't have been exposed to his injury, the groin injury against DK a couple plays later. But anyway, he's leading the league in PBUs. That was a peak for the coverage against Philadelphia. And I think that peak carried over to this week because the 49ers showed that they could cover even when Charvarius Ward was out. I mean, and just look back at 2020 when this team lost cornerbacks, right? The Brian Allen game, that was a nightmare for the 49ers against Miami. Ryan Fitzpatrick on the other side. This team didn't have secondary depth in 2020. They didn't really have it in 2021. Not so sure they had it in 2022, but luckily for the 49ers, Lenore and Ward stayed healthy until the end. Ward didn't stay healthy in this game yesterday against Seattle, but the 49ers had the depth to overcome that. So you have to give this group an A, because I think that they were, 2 catches for Metcalf, nothing after the first drive. Seattle got some yardage with, Tyler Lockett on 3rd down against Isaiah Oliver on that first drive. I just look at this as a unit that really, really stabilized, and I think that Steve Wilks deserves a whole lot of credit. I think his hands-on instruction has taken the 49ers DBs to the next level, and that's exactly what the plan was when they hired Wilks, to elevate the game of the secondary to really complement the pass rush. Look at All-Pro Fred at linebacker. He's going to get he and Greenlaw, they're going to get an A-. The 49ers also saw some Flanagan Foles in this game because Oren Burks got hurt. I'm looking for my game book and my box score right now because I want to read off some tackle stuff. I know Warner at 8. He led the team. Here we are. Found it. Game book. See, 49ers 28, Seattle 16. That is the correct one. Warner has been awesome. He's over 100 tackles on the season. I think he should be right in the midst of that Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Probably hard for a linebacker to win these days when it's tough for the linebackers to accumulate the splash stats like sacks and interceptions, although Warner is grabbing both of those, right? It's just he doesn't accumulate interceptions at the rate of a DB, and he's not accumulating sacks at the rate of an edge rusher. But yesterday, he looked like Willie Mays when he was running under that pick. He stole the second one from Jair Brown. That was a Chase Young pressure, by the way. And when I talk about the defensive line in a little bit, we're going to talk about Chase Young and just the creative impact that the 49ers are able to scheme up with him and Nick Bosa has really been something else. But I saw Warner on a screen to Kenneth Walker in the first half that it didn't look like the 49ers would have the personnel and position to stop that before it reached the first down marker. Chasing down these screens is a matter of desire. And Fred Warner, I mean, he's got the desire, but he also has the athleticism. And somehow, some way, he carved around two blockers, threw Kenneth Walker out of bounds. And then you realize, okay, having Fred Warner on your team, that's a cheat code at that second level. I mean, and then the way that he kept his cool against DK Metcalf and baited him into the ejection at the end of the game just shows that Fred Warner is playing chess and DK Metcalf was playing checkers as far as cerebral, just kind of command of what was going on the field. And DK was obviously really frustrated, but Fred Warner was playing the long game. And then he got up on top of the bench and was hearing it from the crowd. Fred, yes, he was offered a Christmas present from Kyle Shanahan for getting under DK Metcalf's skin. That was what a great report from Mike Silver. But, on top of all that, just he's got the radio in his helmet. He knows what's happening as far as game flow goes. He knows what buttons to press. And that was awesome yesterday. The reason I'm giving the linebackers an A- is the 49ers did miss some tackles yesterday. I think that's the one concern for this defense leaving the game outside of the injuries, of course. There was some yardage picked up by Seattle early on, 2 runs from Zach Charbonnet where Dre Greenlaw kind of got juked a little bit, and then he missed the arm tackle. That's a play we normally see Dre Greenlaw make. He didn't make it yesterday, so hat tip to Zach Charbonnet. And then later in the game, the 49ers fell victim to one of their own plays. It was the Purdy double fake last year against Seattle. Then he threw to George Kittle over the middle. Well, the Seahawks did it from Drew Lock, faking 2 screens to Colby Parkinson over the middle. I don't think the 49ers, I think they could have been more physical against Parkinson at the goal line, and they kind of just avoided contact there. I know that's more of a DB play. I know Jair Brown was close to it, but I'm looking back at that Greenlaw missed tackle on Zach Charbonnet, and I'll say A- for the linebackers. There was a big Kenneth Walker broken play that looked like a punt return in the second half where there was some friendly fire. Fred Warner took a dive and he hit Dre Greenlaw in the hip. And if you're the 49ers, you want to clean that up. There was a stretch of games earlier in the year, I think it was week 3 to 5, where they were absolutely elite as far as tackling. And then it dropped off a lot against the Cleveland Browns and over the course of the losing streak. And then the 49ers came back and were tackling better after the bye week. The past 2 weeks, the tackling has been a concern for the 49ers. 12 missed tackles against Philadelphia, 14 missed tackles against Seattle. Part of it is, they're facing good players at the NFL. They pay the other guys too. But if there's something that the 49ers defense would like to iron out, it is those tackling issues. All right, we move to the defensive line, and that means I put Clelin Ferrell up on the screen. Again, the article here about the resilient 49ers defense overcoming a lot of these injuries is in the description. So it is your job to subscribe to The Athletic right now. Probably a big discount available if you click on the link in the description. This is a magical 49ers run. They're one of the best teams in NFL history. If you look at the analytics have been correct about many things, including Brock Purdy's MVP candidacy. We've been talking about that for months now. The analytics were very, I think, convincing in their the conclusion that you got from them was that the 49ers were better than the Eagles based on what was happening in that game or in the pregame, what was happening leading up to it. And that ended up being true. So anyway, I take a look, obviously analytically at a lot of stuff on The Athletic. I took a little bit more look at the gritty side and the emotional side of things. And the 49ers honoring Eric Armstead in the article yesterday, you will get everything. You'll get all of the above if you subscribe to those articles and stay up to date. I think they're a really good complement to these videos. Anyway, D-line. I was in the locker room yesterday, and on my way out, Chris Kasarik walks in, and he's talking to Clelin Ferrell. And Clelin Ferrell's the guy that's pictured there rubbing his belly like Eric Armstead. We can talk all day about Nick Bosa and Chase Young and Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead, and I will. I'll talk about Bosa and Young plenty here in a couple minutes. But let's not forget that the 49ers have depth upon depth upon depth. Even past the superstars, they're getting big-time play. You saw Javon Kinlaw just absolutely abuse the right tackle in the first half on a tackle for loss. Then you saw Clelin Ferrell do the same thing to Noah Fant. And Noah Fant's a tight end. But, I think this 49ers defense has been slowed down in the past when their secondary edge rushers haven't been able to fight through some blocks from tight ends. I mean, we saw Drake Jackson get pancaked by a tight end earlier. And what that does is if the other team thinks, okay, we could just put a tight end on this edge and we could run to that side, we don't have to double team him or anything, that opens up a whole domino effect of problems for the 49ers, because then the double team help can go the other way. It could go Nick Bosa's way. Plus, you're giving up the yardage to the edge where you're running because the 49ers defensive end is getting pancaked. Ferrell yesterday absolutely owned Noah Fant. And I'm talking about a play that was a tackle for loss in the second half on the run to the right. And, that wasn't the only great play that Clelin Ferrell made. He also had a sack, which you're seeing there, where his discipline to chase Drew Lock was 2 thumbs up. I mean, we've had so many instances when we watch tape of the 49ers over the past few years, because they pass rush with such aggressiveness. They pin their ears back. They're just getting after the quarterback. We've had so many instances of the pass rush kind of getting swallowed in its aggressiveness, and then the QB being able to step up and make a play either with his legs or find a guy downfield. Ferrell, I mean, it did look like he was pinning his ears back, and he pushed the pocket. He pushed the tackle into Drew Lock, but he also had the wherewithal to bounce off of that and then change directions and come back and sack Lock and then rub his belly in honor of Eric Armstead. The discipline that this 49ers pass rush has generated over the past 2 weeks, from the coverage first game plan and the restrained rush against the Eagles to what they did against the Seahawks yesterday, even though they were shorthanded, in nothing short of impressive. And you look at the fact that Kasarik has been able to bring in these reclamation projects on the defensive line and generate and coax really solid play from essentially every single one of them, right? From Arden Key to Charles Amenahu to Clelin Ferrell. To me, that cannot be ignored. And so I'm talking about Kasarik in the locker room yesterday. That he was talking with Clelin Ferrell about their tackles, about his tackles for loss. And he was saying, we'll take that kind of performance any day. When you had got stars along the D-line, plus what Clelin Ferrell is doing, setting an edge, tackles for loss, sacks, you're going to be really, really damn hard to beat. And the 49, it's the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? There are so many stars on this team, a lot of good coaching on this team. But when you are just immersed and surrounded by the very high levels of performance that the 49ers are exhibiting, get guys like Ferrell, who didn't work out for the Raiders after being a very, very high draft pick for them. Guys like Clelin Ferrell are able to raise their game to match the level that they're seeing around them. And I think that's what makes the 49ers the true Super Bowl favorite. It's not the A-listers on their own. It's the A-listers augmented by the B-listers who are working hard to raise their game to an A-list level whenever their opportunities arise. And the opportunities certainly arose against the Seahawks yesterday. Why don't we talk about the 49ers pressures yesterday? We can see the entire story of that defensive line. Bosa with 8, Kinlaw with 4. Look at that. Javon Kinlaw, 4 pressures. This is Kinlaw's easily his best season. The people who urged everybody to stay patient, and I heard a lot of that coming from Chris Kasarik. Obviously, Javon Kinlaw was preaching patience as well, and he practiced what he preached while he was dealing with a lot of injuries over the past season. It turns out that those people were right. Getting on Javon Kinlaw because he had some unfortunate knee injuries wasn't the way to go over the past few years. Now that he's healthy, he's delivering, and he filled in very, very well for Eric Armstead on the inside. I talk about Clelin Ferrell. There you go. 4 pressures. Hargrave, 2. We will learn more about his hamstring injury probably today, if not for sure on Wednesday. Randy Gregory, That was one of his better pass rushing performances. I mean, the choreography of the 49ers rush is what really, really stands out to me. There was a play where Bosa crashed inside to allow Gregory to run the hoop on the outside, and that was where Randy Gregory got his sack. Only one pressure for Chase Young listed here, but remember the 2-point conversion play also saw a pressure, a very key one of Drew Lock, and that kept it as a 5-point game instead of a 3-point game. Critical play in the fourth quarter. Kevin Givens with one pressure. What you're seeing with the 49ers, and I've been watching a lot of practice, and they're calling it the NASCAR package this year. They used to call it the Lightning package, or the Turbo package, whatever you wanted to call it. But now they're paying tribute to those New York Giants teams, right? With Strahan. And the 49ers are trotting out defensive ends across their formation, or at least at 3 spots of their formation in these pass rushing situations. And they call it the NASCAR package. So, I mean, it just depends on who's healthy and who's available. But yesterday, the 49ers had a NASCAR package on the field with Nick Bosa, with Randy Gregory, and with Chase Young. That was their formation. And the fourth guy was Javon Kinlaw. And, you know, when you watched that package go to work against Seattle on 3rd and long, it brought a level of athleticism that isn't normal to an entire side of the line of scrimmage. For the first time ever, Bosa and Young were able, well, I think they did it against Jacksonville, so I spoke too soon on first time ever, but it was rare, and it seemed like this is now becoming a staple of the 49ers repertoire. The 49ers are able to line Bosa and Chase Young up on the same side and crash the right side of the line. I mean, I talked to Chase about it after, and he's like, they tried to slide protect, they tried to chip us. Neither of them worked. Of course, neither one of those worked, because you've got Nick Bosa and Chase Young operating against a tackle and a guard. Look, we have a picture of it right here. There it is. Bosa and Young breaking through the line. You could see the running back very futilely trying to help. So the 49ers, who were down 2 defensive tackles in this game with Armstead and Hargrave, they got creative. They were lining Bosa up over center. That worked too. That was a nice stop. I don't know if Bosa got credit for the sack. I think that Drew Lock might have gotten past the line of scrimmage. But Bosa says he's getting more confident with reps, moving around the line of scrimmage. And as he does that, he gives opportunities to Randy Gregory. He gives more opportunities to Chase Young to play defensive end. And then he could be kind of a joker. Nick Bosa can be that joker figure moving around the middle. The key to everything is what I've been saying all season. It's stopping the run. And the 49ers, I think they had some sellouts against the run that really worked yesterday. Now, obviously, there were the big gainers from Zach Charbonnet back-to-back, and there was a nice run from Kenneth Walker. But by and large, the 49ers put Seattle into poor down and distance situations, and that's what allows their defensive line to employ these creative alignments. That's what allows them to overcome the loss of Eric Armstead and the loss of Javon Hargrave. And those are guys you're ultimately going to need. I don't think you can smoke and mirror your way past it for all that long, but hey, whenever the 49ers are in a pinch, or if they have a situation where they really feel they can overwhelm an opponent with a NASCAR package in a pass-like scenario, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, they've got the defensive end firepower to do some really creative stuff. And that's why I showed you Chase Young and Nick Bosa working against that right side. They hadn't had a chance to do that at Ohio State, because in 2018, which was Young's prime with Bosa on the team at Ohio State, because Bosa would be off the team, he'd be with the 49ers in 2019. Bosa got hurt 3 games into the season. So it really does take a long time to integrate stuff like this into your game plan. Bosa and Young on the same side of the formation. Like, this is not something you wake up in week 1 and do. This is a pass rushing combination that takes some time to unveil over the course of the year. You develop your pass rush over the course of the year. And now Bosa and Young are able to do this. And I think this was on a 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 13. So the key is to get into the down and distance for it to be, pin your ears back time and go after it. Because you don't want to align 2 defensive ends next to each other on on 2nd and 6, right? Or 1st and 10, because those are potential running situations. And you don't want your defensive end in there at a defensive tackle spot because a guard is probably going to be able to maul him. You want the D end to have the advantage over the guard. You don't want the guard to have the advantage over the D end. And the advantage you glean when it's obvious pass. And the 49ers got into obvious pass. Now, Drew Lock on that play that I just showed you, the screenshot of, Drew Lock actually got away from Bosa, but then Greenlaw threw Lock down after a gain of like 1 or 2. So Seattle had a punt. It did work. The slide protection didn't work. The chip didn't work. Nothing worked for Seattle as far as blocking the 49ers. You might have seen in the graphic that I put up on the screen, the 49ers now have 108 pressures against the Seahawks over the past 2 seasons. 5 games, 108 pressures. It's not a typo. That is complete ownership, complete dominance up front. Speaking of that, let's move to the other side of the ball. The 49ers have dominance up front here as well. Well, I don't think it was as pronounced. And I think that Seattle actually had, they got some with their defensive line, especially with Leonard Williams. He hit Purdy a couple times. But these are respectable numbers. Only 10 pressures given up by the 49ers in a game where Brock Purdy was airing it out downfield. We're going to get to that in a little bit. I'm going to go B- for the offensive line. I thought that Brendel missed, it was a tough block, but he got Purdy blown up against Jaron Reed, where the 49ers pulled Aaron Banks. So it was Brendel's job to slide over and block the big defensive tackle. Obviously didn't get it done. You could see McKivitz remains one of the weak links of this offensive line at right tackle. The left side is a whole lot better than the right side of the 49ers line. And just check this out. Look at the 49ers rushing direction for Christian McCaffrey. It's all to the left. Left. And green means 5+ yards gained. So every single run that is gaining more than 5 yards is either going to the middle or to the left side. That's where Trent Williams and Aaron Banks are. And I think that obviously George Kittle is more effective in combo blocks with Trent Williams than Colton McKivitz. The stuff that's 0 to 5 yards or the stuff that is tackled for loss is to the right side. So, it's a staggering difference for the 49ers from left to right, and you could see it in that graphic. Anyway, speaking of the right, though, I will say that John Feliciano gets downfield really, really effectively to the point where on Christian McCaffrey's 72-yarder, which is this one, it was Feliciano who was up in this area just scaring the crap out of Jamal Adams. Adams didn't want any part of John Feliciano, who had gotten 10 to 15 yards downfield. Feliciano was the 49ers' highest graded offensive player. So even on runs to the left, the right guard was doing work for the 49ers. On the big one here, Deebo Samuel was doing work too. Deebo Samuel blocked Boye Mafe. Seattle actually lined up in a 5-man front to open the game. And they were trying to take away the 49ers run game, obviously. But the 49ers said, hey, we have the personnel. We trust in our receivers like no other team does to beat a 5-man front with potential pass personnel. So instead of going to a pass, they went to the pitch left. Deebo Samuel took out Boye Mafe, which, again, you don't see in the NFL. It's a 215-pounder at receiver, taking out what's Boye Mafe, 240 at least, right? An edge rusher. Deebo Samuel seals him off, and then Christian McCaffrey, thanks to Feliciano, thanks to a lot of other blocks, Brandon Ayuk downfield, Brock Purdy running downfield to congratulate Christian McCaffrey. He goes for 72 yards. So this was special stuff from the left side of the 49ers offensive line. And I don't think it was particularly bad from the right side either. I just do think that there were some pass protection lapses. And when you look at the numbers, you could see Colton McKivitz giving up those pressures. You could see the Brendel pressures given up. You could see Banks, I don't think, was great in pass protection yesterday. The good news for the 49ers is Brock Purdy overcomes that stuff. And that's why Brock Purdy should be the NFL MVP. If the season ended today, I don't think it would be very fair if he wasn't, because Purdy is beating pressure much more effectively than any other quarterback in the league. His line has objectively not been great in pass protection. yet he still leads the league in efficiency metrics. And the 49ers want to get better over the course of the season. And I think in a lot of ways they have. What they did against Philadelphia was really impressive as a pass blocking unit. I think that Seattle's got some personnel to give the 49ers trouble, especially since they traded for Leonard Williams, who had some success against the interior. And it was just another good honing opportunity for the 49ers offensive line. Arizona's got one of the worst pass rushes in football, and the 49ers play them next week. So it's a good opportunity for the line to build some real confidence heading into Baltimore. The last time the 49ers played the Cardinals, what did Purdy throw? One incompletion all game? I think he was 21 to 22. He set the NFL record, right, for completion percentage. So keep your eyes peeled there because I think the 49ers have a chance to make a big stride. And I think, Arizona's pass rush is so bad that if you're going to finally introduce the Feliciano, Spencer Burford platoon at right guard, do it against the Cardinals next week. I think it's a perfect runway spot to I don't know if Burford's going to be healthy. That's the first thing, right? He missed this week with knee injury. But if he is, I think that's your perfect spot to introduce the platoon. And if you feel that both Feliciano and Burford are players who leave something to be desired in pass protection, well, that at least gives you fresher versions of those two guys over the course of games, kind of like Brunskill and Burford last year platooning at right guard. And the 49ers' goal is to wear opponents down, take control of the game in the second half, if not sooner. And that might be this team's and this offense's ticket to do just that. Offensive line, it ties directly into tight ends. And, I mean, George Kittle. You see Julian Love try to grab George Kittle as he went by. He was like, oh, crap, I'm beaten on this play. Kittle is so fast and strong and stable that he was able to get past that contact. Official threw the penalty flag right away, and Kittle was wide open, scores the touchdown. One of the many explosive plays from your favorite explosive play merchant, Brock Purdy. Kittle yesterday, 3 catches, 76 yards. That was a 44-yard touchdown. He took a vicious hit from Quandre Diggs in, I think it was the first drive of the game. Kittle said that the impact caused him to bite his tongue and it bled for the whole game. So, I mean, these are car wrecks. I mean, these guys are big, fast, and strong. These are little car wrecks that are happening on the field with these players. I think a lot of people are desensitized to it. That they just been watching football. They hadn't played. Maybe a little too much exposure to video games, and you just kind of feel, oh yeah, there's a hit, whatever. It's not easy. And think about that. Think about getting hit so hard coming over the middle of the field that you bite your tongue and it's bleeding all game. And that's from Mike Silver as well. I think he talked to George Kittle after this one. The fact that Kittle got back up and was such a key part of the 49ers run game with his blocks, and it didn't seem like Seattle wanted any part of perimeter contact in this game. Same idea on Thanksgiving night. The fact that he was able to get up, though, after that hit and be one of the 49ers' primary enforcers, such a cool thing. We'll see if the 49ers are able to bring in Zach Ertz. I know that they're one of the teams that's interested. Definitely not for Kittle's spot. But with Dwelly out, you saw Charlie Warner get a catch yesterday. I think Warner's been a good blocker for the 49ers. I don't even think that Ertz would be trying to take his job. I think Ertz would be locker room presence, few snaps a game for the Dwelly receiving role. Warner is the blocking role, the Dwelly receiving role, while Dwelly has that high ankle sprain. Could be where Zach Ertz fits with this football team. It wouldn't be a major X's and O's signing for sure. I mean, I'm underscoring this would be a very, very small part of the 49ers game plan, but it could be a nice boost to their locker room. If you can get Zach Ertz into the building on the minimum, it's a why the hell not kind of move, because he's won a Super Bowl with a clutch catch before. Why wouldn't you want that type of experience, that type of personality in your locker room? But a good day for the tight ends, even without Ross Dwelly against Seattle. Receivers, Brandon Ayuk, he might have been responsible for 2 giveaways yesterday. I didn't get to talk to Ayuk after the game. I know that he was in a media scrum there. So I will follow up on that over the course of this week. But Shanahan didn't seem happy with him along the sideline after the interception went off of his hands. He was lunging for the ball and into Julian Love's hands. I think that on that play, the the 49ers might have wanted Ayuk to keep on moving, and he sat down. So there was a miscommunication. Judging from Shanahan's sideline reaction, it was Ayuk's fault, but I don't want to put it right on Brandon Ayuk. And obviously he fumbled when Julian Love caught him from behind. That said, I mean, we talk so much about how good of a year Brandon Ayuk is having, explosive wise, separation wise. I've shown you the chart where he's on the top right in the yak and the separation metrics. Look at the bottom of this, yards per route run. In any year, in any normal year, Brandon Ayuk would be number one in yards per route run. He's at 3.12. That's a type of metric that Julio Jones was putting up in his prime. And Julio would be number one in the NFL at 3.1, 3.2 yards per route run, tracked by PFF. A really, really good receiver efficiency stat. Unfortunately for Brandon, Tyreek Hill is doing out of this world stuff this year. 4.3 for Tyreek. So, I mean, that's why it's Tyreek and Christian McCaffrey for Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, they're both of those guys are just head and shoulders above every other skill position player. But let's not forget that Brandon Ayuk is dominating the league as well. Let's not forget that's a prime Julio type of yards per route run metric. Then I went, the tight ends. George Kittle has passed Travis Kelce. 2.25 for a tight end is really good. Travis Kelce's at 2.23, especially when the 49ers have so many competing targets on this team. They're so balanced offensively. The numbers, it's about 50 catches for McCaffrey, for Ayuk, for Kittle, for Deebo Samuel. And Deebo's a little bit less because he's missed some time this year due to injuries. But the way that the 49ers are distributing this football, that goes back to Brock Purdy. We're going to talk about him in a bit. We're getting to the QB grade soon. Has been absolutely phenomenal for San Francisco. So anyway, receivers B- just because of the two giveaway plays that I think probably were on Brandon Ayuk. But let's go back to just how good he is to put himself into position to be open on some of those plays. I mean, and then the Purdy throw to Ayuk on the one where Julian Love ran him down and forced the fumble. That was into the tightest of windows. The chemistry, the cohesion between Purdy and Brandon Ayuk is truly something else. And I mean, then there's cohesion with Deebo Samuel too. We could talk about the go ball, and we know that Jamal Adams can't cover. We could talk about the deep shot that Brock Purdy laid in there perfectly to Deebo Samuel. But what about the off-schedule play that was almost a touchdown right ahead of the Deebo run, right? Deebo ran in for the score. He's got 5 touchdowns over the past 2 games. Well, the play right before then, Purdy is rolling out to the right, crosses his body and finds Deebo Samuel underneath, who rumbles and reaches for the goal line and almost scores. I mean, that's big-time trust in your receiver. Anytime that you see a successful throw back across the grain, I mean, you'll have Kyle Shanahan queasy about it, but he's done it. Purdy's done it with Ayuk in Jacksonville on a longer throw, and he's done it with Deebo Samuel on a shorter throw, obviously a safer one here against the Seahawks. Those are both telltale signs of trust and cohesion between quarterback and receiver. And we saw, absolutely saw that in the game yesterday. I can go to Brock Purdy's throw chart. I think it's time to start moving toward the quarterback position here, but this also tells you about the receivers and what was open and what wasn't. Green is a completion, white is an incompletion, and red is an interception. Look at where the incompletions are, all but the Deebo Samuel drop, which also factors into this B- grade, because that could have been a pick six. You can't drop a screen and pop it up into the air. 49ers got away with one there. But all of the incompletions outside of that are to the intermediate middle of the field. And the 49ers struggled to get to generate a rhythm yesterday. And it's because the Seahawks just gambled on taking away. You see all this white here. They gambled on taking away the throws to the intermediate middle, especially early. So what did I say on Twitter at the time? I said, just wait. The 49ers are going to go downfield and outside the numbers. And I watched the TV broadcast this morning, and Greg Olsen was saying the same thing on the TV broadcast. If you're going to beat a defense that's gambling on the middle, you have to stretch the defense with your arm. And you could also go with the short throws, which are difficult as well because they're all timing based to set up the yards after the catch. Lo and behold, that's exactly what the 49ers did. Purdy beat him over the top. Purdy beat him outside the numbers. Purdy beat him underneath. And you give a lot of credit to the receivers for that as well. Running backs, we're going to get to Purdy now. I just want to get everything else out of the way before that happens. But for the 49ers running backs, that's headlined by Christian McCaffrey, but Jordan Mason obviously vultured in for a touchdown of his own. Great vision. McCaffrey, the amount of times that it looks like he's completely bottled up, but he still gets 5 yards. Or even one where he's bottled up for like a loss of 3, but he still gets 2. Those are huge yards to keep the 49ers on schedule. You saw how important it was to stay on schedule when they didn't do anything in the first quarter against Philly, but then blew up after they stayed on schedule offensively, right? So the fact that McCaffrey is able to keep the 49ers out of 2nd and 12 with a run that sets up 2nd and 8 instead, that's big. Because this offense, when it's playing downhill, the offensive line looks better. Everything is tied together. So McCaffrey gets an A. He's leading the NFL by a lot in rushing. Let me go to the NFL rushing leaders here to give you the exact yardage. Rushing yards, McCaffrey, 1,177. So Brandon Ayuk has a 1,000-yard receiving season. Christian McCaffrey has a 1,000-yard rushing season. So 1,177. He's almost at 1,200. There's no player in the NFL even close to 900 rushing yards. Derrick Henry's number 2 at 841. Mostert's number 3 at 828. DeAndre Swift is at 822. I mean, I got to share this. McCaffrey, head and shoulders above the rest of the league. This is from the NFL's list. Look at that. Christian McCaffrey, 1,177. Henry, 841. Mostert, 828. Christian McCaffrey's well on his way toward winning the rushing title here in 2023. All right, the moment you've all been waiting for. Quarterback A. Should I give him an A+? Yeah, screw it. Let's give him an A+. Let's change the grade. Brock Purdy, A+. I just wasn't thinking when I was handing out these grades. Back to the throwing chart. Brock Purdy has been the most efficient deep passer in the National Football League this year. And Brock Purdy, look at this against the blitz. He was 6 of 7 against the blitz against the Seattle Seahawks. He has the most passing yards by like 300 or 400 yards over anybody else against the blitz, 1,529 passing yards. He is the most efficient QB against the blitz in terms of yards per attempt. He has 14 touchdown passes against the blitz. That's also number 1 in the NFL. His quarterback rating against the blitz is 127.9. Look what I wrote there. Success against the blitz is probably the best barometer of a QB's pregame preparation, because to succeed against the blitz, it's imperative to know the answers to the test beforehand. When the blitz is right up on you, you can't be thinking, oh, this is where I'm going to go, this is where I'm going to go. No, you have to study your ass off over the course of the week to know where you go when you only have a second to throw the football, when that blitz is coming in hot from somebody with a running start. Brock Purdy, again, he has consistently dominated blitzes this season. We can go back to the Giants in week 3 trying to light him up. That didn't work, did it? That was an NFL record high blitz rate according to Next Gen Stats. The Seahawks didn't work for them on their 7 tries yesterday. But the reason I bring these numbers up is because they illustrate just how prepared Brock Purdy is week in and week out. And that's not all with Brock Purdy. It's just like a part of what's going on, right, with him. He if you want to look at the aggregate, the yards per attempt would be an NFL record, 9.9. They're right there, just slightly ahead. If you look at a further decimal than Kurt Warner was for the greatest show on turf, Rams, in 1999. Adjusted net yards per attempt, number 3 in NFL history. 2004, Peyton Manning, and 2011, Aaron Rodgers are both ahead of Brock Purdy, but just barely. He's at like 9.3 adjusted net yards per attempt. I mean, we are seeing Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers prime level production from Brock Purdy. The comp for Brock Purdy is Drew Brees, who can move. Remember when Kyle Shanahan said that he wants this was before the 2021 draft, he wants a quarterback who can throw like Drew Brees but run like Lamar Jackson? Brock Purdy is the closest thing in the league that there is to that. I mean, it really is. It is staggering to see the accuracy with which he delivers his throws. It's like prime Drew Brees right now. And we talk about, 7 straight games with a 70% completion percentage. The NFL record is 8, held by Joe Montana in 1989. One of the greatest 49ers seasons ever. That was the 55-10 beatdown over the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. If the 49ers meet up with the Broncos again, I was talking to my friend last night, 55-10 might be possible at halftime. But you look at what Purdy is doing, combining the precision with the mobility. And I talk a lot about the fact that his 10-yard split was only 1/100th of a second slower than Lamar Jackson's. You look at those two things, and you have a truly special quarterback who's delivering production that we just simply haven't seen before in a 49ers uniform, and that includes Montana and Young. I'm not saying that he's as great as Montana and Young. I'm saying that the production you're witnessing right now is at a higher level than those guys ever reached. Now, it's going to take longevity from Purdy to be mentioned in the same level of greatness as those guys, but he's shown that he has all the tools to deliver it. And the people who are not appreciating what's happening right now are truly missing out. You don't see Peyton Manning levels of prime Aaron Rodgers levels of production very often. In fact, you've only seen that twice in NFL history. And Brock Purdy is doing that right now. Yesterday I had the quarterback production chart, and it's one that I should go back to right now. We're going to go QB stats. We're going to put this up on the screen because, it's just so visually illustrative of what Brock Purdy is doing this year. He's running laps around the rest of the league. And Trent Williams went into it yesterday. It's not the system, because every quarterback is a system quarterback. Every quarterback is working with a system. It is anticipatory from Brock Purdy. The blitz numbers tell you so much because he's ready for what defenses throw at him. He is throwing guys open even on the move. I talk about the Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees hybrid. Well, how about the play where Purdy kept his hips facing downfield and threw Brandon Ayuk open? So you want to be further up and to the right. You want to be where Brock Purdy is right here. Head and shoulders above everybody else. He's as far to the right as you can get, and he's as far up as you can get. This is not a joking matter. What we are seeing is historically good from Brock Purdy, and anybody denying it right now just does not have a clue. Point blank. But that throw where he threw Ayuk open, it was everything that you would want in a quarterback, and it was also improvement over what we saw from Purdy last year, rolling to the left. You'd force him out of the pocket in 2022, and he would start running for his life, and then he'd spin around and he'd throw the ball away. And yeah, it was a neutral play at best for the 49ers, right? But in this yesterday, the composure was so good yesterday that after the 7-step drop, as he was rolling left, he was able to keep his hips and his eyes facing toward potential targets downfield, and that allowed him to drop the dime in to Brandon Ayuk that threw Ayuk open. This is elite level football. It's off schedule. It's overcoming pass protection issues for the 49ers. The way he's layering throws over linebackers in front of safeties over the middle of the field, that's great. But, at the end of the day, the 49ers are at 16% explosive plays. The only team in NFL history that's matched that was the Greatest Show on Turf Rams. They were at 16%. The distribution of the football to all of the 49ers' weapons, it's next level stuff from Brock Purdy too. So sorry that I gave him an A initially. That was, we'll just call it a typo on my part. You should be an A+, especially since it seems like that interception wasn't even Purdy's fault. He is plus productivity with his legs. There is not a throw he cannot make. Trent Williams pointed that out. He's like, you cannot show me a throw he can't make. He can make the outside numbers throws. He can make the deep throws. He can make the intermediates. He can make the short throws. Every single one of those, throw types was on the tape yesterday against Seattle. You can see it here. It is staggering stuff from Brock Purdy, who, right now is the most deserving player of MVP in the National Football League. Finally, special teams for the 49ers. I'm going to give it a B+. Mitch Wishnowsky called that fake on his own, according to what the 49ers were saying. Unfortunately, Ronnie Bell slipped, and he told me I should have just acted like I was hurt because it looked like he was trying to it looked like an illegal block. That called it back. I think Wishnowsky's punting really well this year. The 49ers are going to have to weather the storm here and use Deebo Samuel as their kick returner, which probably makes people hold their breath just from an injury perspective, while Ray McLeod's on IR. That's going to be until essentially the end of the regular season. The coverage, I thought, for the 49ers was a lot better than the last time they played Seattle. They could have gotten their special teams revenge on the Seahawks had that fake punt from Wishnowsky went through. Remember, Travis Homer had the fake punt against the 49ers back in 2021. They didn't get it because of the penalty. But I thought, all in all, the 49ers played it to serve on special teams, which was critical because the Seahawks are a team that's a top 5 special teams unit. The 49ers rank down in the bottom 7. And we've seen Seattle stay in games thanks to their special teams against the 49ers. So even down some key guys, George Odom, Darrell Luter Jr., the 49ers held through on special teams, which I think was really important. So across the board, A for the defensive backs, A- for the linebackers, A- for the D-line, B- for the O-line, A for the tight ends, B- for the receivers, A for the running backs, A+ for Brock Purdy, your MVP leader, and B+ for the special teams. That's a hell of a game for the 49ers. They are 10-3. They're rolling. They're the number 1 seed. They're heavily favored against Arizona. There are injuries, obviously. We talk about Hargrave and Charvarius Ward. They overcame them yesterday. I think they're well positioned to overcome whatever injuries there might be against Arizona. And then Baltimore is coming in for the big test on December 25th. So that's where the 49ers are at right now. They are clearly the best team in the NFL. It is a matter of sustaining it now. This is team tiers outside of garbage time. 49ers head and shoulders above everybody else. Hell, the head and shoulders above everybody else, even with garbage time included. Look where this is garbage time included. Look where Dallas's star is. Now I'm going to switch it to garbage time not included. See where the Cowboys move to. Their defense takes a tumble when garbage time isn't included. So that's why I include both. Dallas is feasted on opponents in garbage time, which part of it should be counted, which is why I show both of the charts. But the 49ers are the number 1 team in the NFL across the board of both. So that is ownership of Seattle. First 4-game losing streak for the Seahawks under Pete Carroll. And he's been the coach for well over a decade. Impressive stuff. Gritty win for the 49ers. It was imperfect, but when you win by multiple scores in the NFL, your grades are going to look good because they should, because that's not easy to do. And the 49ers are showing signs of a truly special team. They have the number 5 DVOA of all time right now. There's only Super Bowl winners ahead of them on that list, except for those 7 Patriots, actually, who had at this point of the season had the best DVOA ever. Obviously, they went 18-1. So 49ers, they already got the losses out of the way. We'll see. Maybe there will be another one, but right now they're playing as if they're on a mission to not lose again. Thanks for watching. Everybody subscribe to The Athletic if you enjoyed this. I mean, that's the main point of this, is for you to check out my articles. So there it is. It's in the description. The creative grit of the 49ers. We'll talk to you soon.